Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's What's Up Wednesday, where we are going live with you on Facebook and LinkedIn every Wednesday at 2 p.m. to talk about our upcoming 19th Annual International Human Trafficking and Social Justice Conference. It's going to be hosted virtually on September 21st through the 23rd. We are just over a month away. It's crazy how fast it's going. I say this every week, but every week we get closer and closer. So my name is Anna Schramm. I work at the University of Toledo's Human Trafficking and Social Justice Institute, and I am the planner of this amazing conference. And today we have a special guest with us, Dr. Jared Rose. He is an assistant professor in the clinical mental health and school counseling program at the Bowling Green State University. And then he also is a licensed professional clinical counselor with his own private practice. So, hey, Jared, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, thanks for having me, Anna.
Yeah, so today we are going to be focusing on our direct service type of presentations at the conference. Over the past couple weeks, I've been talking about all of the variety of topics and sessions that you can attend. So this week we're focusing on direct service professionals and what they do in the anti-trafficking and social justice field. So Jared, can you just start us off in talking a little bit more about what you do in your work in this field?
Sure. So, as you mentioned, I am a professor and also the program coordinator at Bowling Green State University. I am in our clinical mental health and school counseling programs, which means I train graduate level students on the degree requirements and accreditation requirements for licensed as either a clinical counselor or a school counselor, and help them get towards their licensure and taking that licensure exam that some of us direct service providers are all too familiar with, right? So there is that piece. And then, yes, I am also in private practice in Toledo, Ohio, where I, in part, still see my own clients as well as work on providing supervision for folks entering the field, as well as a fair amount of consultation with other providers, as well as trainings in the area that I've sort of done for many, many years, long before the private practice, and I still do, just sort of under a different banner these days. And as far as relative to this, social justice is my jam and always has been. I don't know how to be anything other than an advocate or a social justice I guess, warrior. I get kind of mouthy and lippy. Anyone who knows me is aware of this. Yeah, see that smile, everyone? She knows. I often tell my students and folks that I work with that I was involved in these types of efforts long before the identity of a counselor. And so for me, they kind of go hand in hand. And a lot of my work is on certain populations. So, for example, human trafficking survivors and thrivers, those impacted by human trafficking, as well as LGBTQ, trans and gender expansive individuals, things of that nature. And still, although not quite as much as what I used to do, I've done about 30 years working with people living with HIV. And so that's the short version, Anna. I mean, it's just my life. It's just what we do, right?
Yeah,
So
it is.
here we are.
It is amazing. You do incredible work, and like you
Oh,
said, you
thanks.
you live this. This is your life. So, yeah. As so, you are a clinical counselor, and so
Mhm.
that is just one type of direct service professional. But there are several other types of people who I guess are considered direct service providers
Sure.
who work in the field of anti-trafficking, social justice. So, just for people who might not be aware, can you tell us so what are some other types of direct service professionals? And why is it even important that we have these people at the conference and presenting?
Sure. So, from my perspective, whether you're talking about social justice for other populations or specifically for human trafficking, I like to constantly remind people that it takes more than just one person or more than just one agency. And so I think it's a great question, because I think when you ask most people what is a direct service provider, you're going to get all sorts of answers. But for me, when it comes to, let's say, specifically human trafficking, you need the psychotherapists such as myself and others. You need the social workers who are doing case management or other types of help for access to services, or non clinical social workers who are able to help provide supportive services. Um, I think of the nurses that are running into survivors, or those who are still being trafficked, physicians. We are hearing more and more, luckily, of legal entities that are starting to focus on human trafficking um, legal cases in order to bring people to justice and to do our best at ending trafficking. I think of everyone, folks that run housing facilities that are taking in folks who are exiting the life. Anyone and everyone in my mind that is in some sort of fashion helping individuals that are being trafficked or leaving trafficking to be a direct service provider. I personally, I get down to, the cab drivers who are picking people up, right? Like anyone that is coming in contact with a victim, a survivor, or a thriver, in my mind, can be a direct service provider. I'd like to think that we're all working toward the same goal of helping
Mhm.
people first and foremost, and reducing the opportunities and reducing the trafficking that's happening.
Yeah.
And so I guess to that end, why this conference? I mean, come on, I've been here for like ever with this conference. Like I tell everyone I know they should be at this conference, especially now that it's digital. Um, Whether you are just entering a field and need to know more, or you are highly experienced and need to increase your skills or your awareness, there is always something for you to learn. There's always people for you to network with and access. Again, direct service provision doesn't happen in a silo. You never know who you're going to meet at a conference, even digitally. You never know who you're going to meet and who you're going to learn from. This morning, Anna and I were at a different meeting for the regional coalition meeting, and I learned things from one of the presenters about some legal things that are happening. I think of the conference last year as an educator. I learned from another educator something that I have been toying around with and trying to figure out, which is how to develop a class for university students. And here's this person I've never heard of doing this amazing class that she has run for like years. And I connected with her, like, hey, I don't want to steal your intellectual property, but can I get your syllabus? Like, how did you do this? I want to learn more. It doesn't matter how long you've been doing this, whether you're brand new or you've done it forever, there's always opportunities to meet and network and learn new things that, again, can help other people. And I think that for me is what it's all about.
Yeah. So you kind of just answered my question a little bit. And like you said, you have been around with this conference for many years since its
Just a
beginning,
minute.
either as a presenter, a volunteer, an attendee. We can't seem to get rid of you and you can't seem to get rid of us. It's this mutual relationship where we just keep sticking around. So yeah, any other things you want to add about just like your experience with the conference, or like why you keep coming back year after year?
Um, ooh, those are some loaded questions, Anna. Um, I've been involved since 2010, when Dr. Celia Williamson first asked me, excuse me, to join her and one of her interns. This is back in the day when it was much smaller, and that was probably what, the seventh year, sixth or seventh year, and so
Yeah.
it was her and one of her interns, and now there's like a small army of interns, right?
Mhm.
And myself, and it was this kind of like committee of three, and we put on at the time we called it her conference because
Mhm.
until it grew it really was. And so first it was her and Mark and me, and then it was her and Tasha and I for 2 years. That then kind of bled over into my being the tech guy for a couple of years, when we were still
Mhm.
physical and literally running between every single room for every technology anything at the facility. um, a whole bunch of miscellaneous, as you know. Like I still remember when you and I first met, when you were coming in, and I was just like, "Oh, girl, just pick up whatever they ask for and run wherever they need,
Yep.
and you do what you got to do, right?" And that's
Yes,
how we
you
lived.
do.
Um, And so, yeah, I've always been involved. I missed 1 year. I'm sorry. I was actually planning a national conference elsewhere and missed 1 year. But other than that, I've
I
always been
guess we'll forgive
involved.
you.
I'm sorry.
I said, I guess we'll forgive you. You were planning
I know
another conference.
I had major identity issues. My involvement with this conference actually led to my being asked to coordinate and run a different one. And I'm like, but you have it planned like literally around the same time, and I can't, as a conference planner, you can't do this twice back to back and
Oh no.
survive. No. So I missed a year. But in addition to that, I have always presented every year except for that one. I've always presented as well, and I keep coming back. For me, it's a multitude of things. One, it's all of the people that I know, that I love, that I respect. I have seen firsthand what you have done from where we were to where we are, and I am blown away. Um, and when you get to work with people who are as passionate about the work as you are and that you respect so much, it's very easy. I mean, you and I were literally just joking earlier today, like, you ask, and I'm hard pressed to say no. I think I said no to Celia one time in my life, and I have never forgiven myself.
Yeah.
Um, it's a great place to be with amazing people, and it's nice when you get to go to a conference where everyone there is focused on the same thing, you know, whether it be social justice or trafficking, it all gets, social justice in general. Um, it's nice to be around folks that speak the same language, that understand the same things, and that even if you don't necessarily agree on everything, you're all in it for the same reasons. And that to me is a huge reason why I come back every year. Even though it's electronic, it's still that energy and that vibe. Um, and I won't lie, after 12 years of this and 13 years with the coalition, I mean, I wouldn't know what to do if I wasn't involved in anti-trafficking work. Like, it's
Yeah.
what we do.
Right. Yeah, we're all serving that mission. So, like
Right.
you mentioned, you are presenting at this year's conference. So
Yeah.
your session is on helping through the aftershock, effective service provision for sexual violence survivors and thrivers. So I'm sure you're going to be covering a lot of great information in that session. But do you want to give our listeners a little sneak peek on what you're going to be talking about?
Sure. So what I've done is I've taken a variety of a few different evidence-based approaches to direct service provision. There is a fair amount of uh, psychotherapy overtones, but I am really tailoring it more to any direct service provider for this conference. And I've taken these things and kind of repackaged them a little bit into a clearer, shorter version of when you are working with sexual violence victims, survivors, and thrivers, including those who have been sexually trafficked. Here are some things that you need to know, and here are some ways to go about things that may be a little contrary to what you got taught in your grad program, or maybe contrary to what you're doing in the field. So, just one example, we hear a lot of individuals who have experienced trauma working through forgiveness, right? That one way to heal is to forgive the person that wronged you, and a lot of the research says, yeah, don't do that. That it doesn't matter that for decades we thought that was a good idea. Here's all of this research that says you could actually reharm someone, you can re-traumatize them, and that is not necessary, and maybe you should let that be their choice. Forgiving themselves for what
Mhm.
happened is important, but forgiving a perpetrator is not, and actually, hey, maybe knock that off because you're going to hurt them. Other things such as engagement. Not every provider is the right fit for every survivor. So, for example, as a male psychotherapist, female survivors of human sex trafficking, they don't want to work with me. And I have to be okay with that. And I have to know who in my area is appropriate to refer them to so that they can get the help they need. Far too often, I see providers who mean well and want to help so bad, and they miss the boat on, but if that person doesn't jive with you and feel safe with you, it's not going to work. A number of other things. I've packaged it in what I call the sexual violence alert points, and alert stands for an acronym. And we're going to walk through that. And I guess the last piece I would offer is the T is for trauma treatment. And I got a whole lot to say about effective, appropriate trauma treatment, not just supportive services, but actual trauma treatment. And so I hope folks are going to get something out of it. We'll cross our fingers.
Yeah.
It's things that I've certainly learned in my own life and my own practice. So should be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, even those little bits that you shared are very interesting, and I think going to be really helpful and practical to a lot of direct service providers. So, I mean, yeah, definitely encourage people to attend. If you want to hear more about what Jared has to say, make sure you register for our conference. That's traffickingconference.com/register. I do want to mention a couple other direct service provider sessions that you can attend at the conference. I'm just going to list a few. As you remember, we have 110 breakout sessions that you can choose from this year. It is our largest conference to date. So, you'll have a difficult time choosing which ones you want to attend live. But remember, if you do register for the conference, all of these sessions are going to be recorded and available as on demand webinars. And you can watch those for up to 3 weeks after the conference. So then you can catch all the ones that you missed live. But a couple other sessions I do want to highlight are Sherry Mays. She's going to be presenting on early career mental health professionals' preparedness to counsel survivors of sex trafficking. Then we have Elizabeth Bowman, and she's going to be talking about trauma-informed yoga in clinical practice with sex trafficking survivors. Then Susan Cahan, she's going to be presenting on trauma-informed care for survivors with disabilities. Then Rachel Johnson and Marianne O'Malley, they're going to talk about clinical implications for work with transgender survivors of trafficking. And then Karika Yarbow-Smith and Nikki Locklear, they're going to be presenting on cultural considerations when working with Native communities. I'm really excited about those couple of presentations. A lot of them hit on some of those vulnerable populations that we see for victims of trafficking. But there's going to be many, many other sessions that are related to direct service providers. Make sure you check out our full schedule on our website. So, Jared, is there anything else that you want to add before we wrap up today?
Just doesn't matter who you are. If you're interested in helping people, this is where to be. This is where you need to be. It's worth it. It's totally worth it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today on
Absolutely.
What's Up Wednesday. It was great to hear from you and get your perspective on what you're working on and your presentation. So, everyone, remember that we are going live with you on Facebook and LinkedIn every Wednesday at 2 p.m. to talk about our upcoming conference. Next week, I have Dr. Celia Williamson back with me, and we are talking about our legal and law enforcement type of presentations that you can attend. So, if you have any questions, want to learn more about the conference, register. Only a couple weeks left to register for our early bird prices. So go to traffickingconference.com. And until then, we will see you next week. Have a great day, everybody.